This is a piece of 1/2 inch 4130, and I want to stick it in my lathe here and just drill a hole that's just under 3/16 and then part it off at just a little over 1/2 inch, and then I'll flip it around and face it. That's going to be a bushing in the brake pedals. I'll make 2 of them, and once it's welded up, then I'll ream it to 3/16. And I made this little aluminum piece here just to put in the rear of the spindle to give this long rod some support, so hopefully it won't flop around when I turn it. Hopefully I can turn it at a somewhat of a high speed and avoid flip-flopping. Along with it being 1/2 inch, it's somewhat stiff, so we'll see how that works. So these I will weld up as part of the brake pedals, and any deformation that occurs during welding will be eliminated through reaming, and these will get reamed to 3/16 of an inch. So I'll ream them after they're all welded up. And the brake, actually these actuate a lever that squeezes the master cylinders. So I'm about ready to weld up the brake pedals. I ground curves on the ends of these. It's actually kind of tricky, kind of fiddly. One radius for this, a tighter radius for these little guys. So I'll start out by welding these 3 pieces together. I'll do both of them. Then I'll grind a small radius on this also to fit these. And after I've done that, I'll probably use that whole assembly as a handle to grind a steep angle on this, and the pedals will get welded on there. Let me show you the blueprint so you can see what I'm going to do here, or attempt to do. Alright, so these are the big tubes, but they're only 1 inch wide. Then there's the small tube, and I ground the end on those already. These are the little guys I made on my lathe, and I'll ream those out after this is all welded up. I'll start out by welding those 3, then I'll grind the end of this, weld that on there. Then I'll use this whole thing as a handle, grind this angle on here, and finish up by welding the, I don't know what that would be called, just the footrest. That's the goal. The trick here is that this is a big piece of steel and these are small tubes. The trick is going to be welding these up without just burning these tubes away. So that ought to be fun. That little tube I can see, if I move the flame away, I can see what's getting red. And that little tube is heating up super fast. I'm trying to keep the flame focused on that big piece of metal so I don't just melt the little tube into oblivion. There we go. I think I got a tack there without destroying something. Adjust my flame a little bit. Same thing here. Boy, the little tube heats up really fast, so I'm pointing the flame at the big tube. That little tube's melting before the big tube even gets cherry. I got the shit. Yeah, I'm totally melting the little tube away. There, I get a tack. Okay, so maybe it's salvageable. Trying to get that to flow into the big tube. There we go. Alright, need to look closer. I don't know if I destroyed it or if it's going to be okay. wasn't too bad. Got a little tack there without melting that little tube completely away. There we go. Alright. I am totally melting that little tube away. Okay, still there. That's hot. I mean, it's toasty on my torch hand. I'm trying to point the torch more kind of towards myself, which is away from, I'm trying to point it this way, so more of the heat hits this heavy piece and less of it is focused on that. You probably couldn't see more, point it more towards this heavy piece and less towards the small tube in the hopes that I don't burn through the little tube. So I thought welding these little tubes to these tubes would be much easier than to these buttons or these little blocks of steel here, but really it's not much easier. Maybe that's just because of my attitude, and because I thought it would be much easier, but it really didn't turn out to be too different. I kind of feel like if I can weld up these brake pedals, that I can weld up almost anything. And I spoke too soon maybe, because I melted away a little bit of this big tube. Fill it in a little bit there, and so I'm going to run a reamer through that, because these are going to rotate on top of the bottom of the rudder pedals where my feet go. So I'll run I just looked it up last night on Grizzly, and they had a 5/8 and 3/4 reamer for like $15 and $17, something like that. So get a reamer and ream those out anyway. So the fact that I had to put a little more steel back on that end of it, I think may not matter, because the reamer will clean up the inside of it. Now let's try not to melt away. Ah. That burnt away just a little bit. Alright, I think that end is done. Let's go back to this thing, about which I'm not really too excited. That is getting hot. It's roasting my hand. I'm going to grip down on the torch a little bit. Holy cow. That is hot. I should probably put gloves on. I have gloves, but for most things, or the things I've done so far, you don't need it, but that just radiates so much heat. need to weld another small tube on the other side of these, so I'm not done yet. Looks like my camera didn't melt, so that's good. Huh. You know, that's not terrible. I don't think I destroyed them anyway. Huh. It's not too bad. A lot of junk on the outside, but that was difficult, but kind of feel good about it. I guess I feel good mainly about not destroying it totally. That was difficult. That small tube just wanted to melt into a puddle. So now I'm going to weld the second piece on here, and I ground the little radius on the end there. And these pieces are small and funny shaped, so it's hard to hold them. So I got some magnets up there, which don't really stick to the table when you've got them sideways, but they add enough weight that hopefully it'll keep them in place. And this angle is 115 degrees from here to there. So I'll just tack up one of these sides, and then I can get rid of the magnets. And the trick, I think, to this is going to be that I'm going to need to make sure I do the other one opposite. Doing this first part, they're identical. Nothing to think about. But from the here on out, well, pretty much just this, putting this tube on, I need to keep that in mind. Well, when I do the second one, I need to think carefully and make sure I get them on right, so I don't have two that are the same, because they are mirror images. So let's see. That angle's good. I think my alignment's good. I have a little thin piece of aluminum under here just to get the height, get this up just a hair for alignment. All right. I think that's good. After I tack this, I'm going to let it cool off, and then I may need to straighten it. There we go. That should be a good tack. They've got a massive weld on the inside of that. Probably pretty ugly by professional standards. But it'll be strong, I guess. I probably could go in there and do a little bit of cleanup. Blend it a little more. Do a little blending in here, over here, around here. So ultimately, I don't know if these are going to be good enough. The alignment, the parallel, these are not perfectly parallel. I don't know if this should be wider and this should stick out further past the welds to give a bearing surface. And actually the plans aren't super clear on that. This seems like what the plans say, but I don't know. Anyway, if nothing else, this is great practice, and maybe these will work out just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and weld the toe plates on there, or the foot pads, or whatever you'd call them, and they'll be done. The brake pedals will be done. Uh, this is difficult to do a good job. Just that little tube is so easy to melt away. Hard to get in that underneath there. This is ugly. Ah, crap. Son of a bitch. I just melted half the pedal away. Okay, not half, but good grief, man. That sucks. That sucks. Crap. I don't know if I can repair that. Okay, I'm melting a little bit of metal back in where I melted it off this plate. Maybe I can file that plate a little bit and clean it up so that it doesn't look too terrible. I think maybe I can. So I added a little rod to where I burnt the plate away. Good grief, that was the hardest thing so far. So that doesn't look too bad. Well, that was difficult. Probably could go back in with the torch and clean that up a little bit. Just a little bit. Of course, then you risk melting it away again. Okay, I think that smoothed out the weld a little bit. Just to clean it up, make it look a little neater. Huh. Boy, that small diameter tube really wanted to melt away at some spots, and the pedal melted away a lot right there. And looks like it melted away on the corner a little bit too. I guess it could have gone worse. Not too bad. If you pull the torch back when it starts to melt away, looks like you can do some salvaging. So, now I'll do the other one. The one on the right's the second one, and it went quicker and easier. And I think it turned out maybe a little better. They're both probably about the same though. But that joint was definitely the hardest one I've done so far. There are different places on both pieces, both on the plate and on this little tube, that burn away super easy. Like on this plate, that corner right there, I'm welding right at a sharp corner. That wants to just melt away. And also the back side of that plate in here wants to melt away. That's a tough joint. It's really tight to get in there. You just really have to shove a lot of rod in there. And that kind of solves it, I guess. That provides a heat sink. Just push a lot of rod way in there. That's the trick there. So, brake pedals. So once things start to come together, we'll see if these are good enough. Yeah, like I said, I don't know if this is wide enough. Maybe I need it to stick out for some bearing surface. I don't know. And if these aren't parallel, if you put a rod through both of those, or tubes through both of them, are those tubes parallel? And I'm pretty sure they're not quite going to be parallel. So maybe I can heat it up and somehow bend those so that they're parallel. I think that'd be tricky, but if they're not straight, then I'll probably try that because I have nothing to lose. So we'll see if these will work. I'm pretty pleased though, and it's definitely a challenge for a neophyte welder like me, but I think they were super good practice. Tricky and good practice, and every minute I spend welding I pick up new things and get new experience. So brake pedals done. Just real quickly, this is more of a perspective that you'll get in the airplane, except this will be more like that. Your heel will be down on this bar across here. So this would be the right rudder pedal, and this will slide on here. I think it'll come all the way across like this, and it'll ride on there. So your foot will be on here, and you'll just push with the whole foot to do the rudder, and then just push with the toe on the brake. So that's the idea.